All right, this is fucking just shit my mom did, part 8 or 9. I fucking don't care anymore. It'll be good once it's on the fucking YouTube, okay? Like, just trust me. We're on some part up there, and we're getting in the numbers. Anyways, so when we were kids, my brothers wanted a fucking tree fort, right? And my dad said, or my stepdad said he was gonna build us one, and that was good. We were cool with that. But my mom, she wanted to make the tree fort herself. Now keep in mind, in our shed at the time, there was like fucking, I don't know, 4 or 5 pieces of fucking plyboard and maybe a fucking 2x4 or 2. Not anything to build a tree fort in the slightest. So my mom goes around knocking on fucking neighbors' doors, asking for any spare wood she can have, so she can, build a fort. And keep in mind, like, my stepdad said he was gonna build one. Like, he ended up buying one from like one of those like play fort sets from Rona, where you get all the lumber and then you just have to follow the directions and build it yourself. Like, we ended up getting one of those. So I don't know why my mom was so gung-ho to build us a tree fort herself. And here's my story. So as she gets lumber off of our neighbor Joe, I think he gave her some nails too. I remember giving her a box of nails. So she has enough to build, if she were to build like just a standard little like raft style fort where it's just you climb up there and it's just like a wooden plank, there's no fencing on it, but it's just like a almost like a flat little board, you know what I mean, or a bunch of you get what I'm trying to say. I can't describe it right now, but yeah, if you ever see what a raft looks like from like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Huck and Sawyer, something like that, just in a tree. She should have built one of those. It would have been fine. But my mom, she decides to build it to the side of the fence. Like, she went to one of the fucking fence posts that holds the whole fence up, and she starts building it off of there. And as she was like building the fence, she was, I say building the fence, sitting beside the fence, she sat on an anthill. So not only was she fucking, building this thing that ended up looking like a crack shack, it was a fort at best, in the sense that it was built to the side of the fence and it had, resembled something of a roof and a doorway, like just a little passage to get in through. But this thing was like as tall as the fence, and it was very tiny, and you can maybe fit you and one other person on the inside of it standing up. You couldn't like sit down both cross-legged and even play a game of fucking tic-tac-toe or nothing. You couldn't do anything in there. You could hotbox it if you were a teenager, but you wouldn't be able to even stand in there. It's the size of the height of a fence. I was like fucking, I don't know, 5 or 4. So on top of mom, calling us outside to present us this little crack shack of a tree fort, my mom was scratching herself all over because she was all covered in ant bites, and she's running around the yard after. Once she realized she had ants crawling on her, she's running around and flailing and fucking screaming and yelling in the backyard and mad at us that we don't want to play in her fucking shitty ass little tree fort. And yeah, that was that. It was good times. That's one of the more funnier memories, just because my mom went out of her way to she just had a shit day building this fucking tree fort, finger quotations, just to get all bit up by ants, just for like the next payday to go by and my dad buy a fucking, a Rona fucking fort building set. And just, yeah, like that thing lasted us for years. Like, even in one of my old YouTube videos when I was a teenager, one of the ones where I ride my skateboard down the slide and I crashed through a bunch of styrofoam that's on a landing pad. That was the part. What was the remains of the leftover tree fort? Some of the wood got so rotted out we had to deconstruct it, but all the wood that was still usable and still not rotted got built together into a smaller fort that my brothers could play in. I don't know, some of me and my brothers are 10 years apart. So, yeah, that's what became of the fort overall. Then it got torn down. But, yeah, lots of memories with that fort. I remember one year, me and my brother, because there's a swing set attachment that kind of comes off of the fort part, we built, like, 2x4s, and we just nailed them across, and we made like a deck because we could climb on top of the roof of the tree fort, but like, it was steep. It wasn't really the best thing you want to be on. You could slip and fall or roll off, right? But when we built this deck on top of the tree fort, it was pretty cool. But it wasn't sturdy in the slightest, and I remember it was starting to break, and like, within a week after we had built it, because we were just jumping on the fucking nails, and they were starting to make the boards pry loose, and just dangerous shit. We could have fallen like a good fucking 10 feet, maybe fucking 8 to 10 feet on top of some fucking nails. So it wasn't probably the safest thing, but it's what my parents let me do back in the day. I don't know if anyone else ever had tree forts growing up. There's lots of tree forts. And a lot of my friends had them. Like my buddy Matthew had one in his backyard, but his was actually in a fucking tree and had power in it. My neighbor across the street, Drew, had a tree fort in his yard. His had power in it and was in an actual fucking tree. And then, like, my friend Chris Brown, the one who lived on my street, he was more around my age, he had 2 in his backyard. Like, when his family moved in, they already had, like, a small fort that was there from when they moved in. And we weren't allowed to play in it because it was old and rotted. And it wasn't really much of a fort. It was like a triangle-shaped, yet again, raft-style fort. You know, the one I was describing earlier that my mom should have built? It was like that, but it was enough to fit, like, maybe 2-3 people in there. And we were never allowed to play in it. So, that was that. But in his backyard, though, he had a fort similar to, like, the one that I was describing that came from Rona. You know, it had a little ladder on the inside of it. It used to have a swing set extension, but the swing set extension part was broken off. So it was more like this little fucking tower with a deck. And then the slide part used to be there, but he got rid of it. So now you just, like, they put a rope there so you could jump and swing off. And that was pretty cool. And I'm not even done yet. My fucking neighbor who lived across the street from me, Craig, he had a fucking tree fort, but his was kind of dinky. Like, his was a raft-style one, as I keep on describing. I don't know how else to call them, but it was kind of like a raft, but he had a curtain around it. But it was, again, in a tree. I don't know why all my friends had tree houses that were in trees, just not mine. And soon after we got that tree fort thingy in our backyard from Rona, our neighbor 2 houses down, their girl, his name was Maggie, they got one too, but they had more trees in their backyard than mine did, so they actually had a zip line on their fucking tree fort. And I remember this one day, we were playing in their backyard, and their zip line had this little rope where if you held on to it, you could run it across the yard, climb up the goddamn the ladder, and then ride the zip line across. And I'm playing tag with Maggie, and I see my brother running with a zip line in his mouth of all fucking things towards the ladder, and he's climbing up the fucking he's climbing up the ladder with the zip line rope in his mouth. And I've came up the other side of the fort because I'm trying not to get tagged, and I think, oh man, my brother's in like a perfect position. If I grab the zip line, I can ride out of this tree fort, be too high in the air, and this girl can't catch me. So, you know, in my infinite wisdom, that's fucking a genius idea. I tell my brother I'm grabbing the zip line. In his infinite wisdom, he grips down as hard as he can. Keep in mind, he's 3 years old. He grips down with his fucking teeth on this fucking zip line rope as I jump and launch off of it at fucking full running speed. He gets like whiplash, clothesline back by the mouth, jaw, teeth, everything. Gets like thrown onto the ground. He gets the wind knocked out of him. And as like I'm riding this zip line across, I'm thinking I'm like the fucking, like the slickest dude ever. I'm like, you know, not getting caught in tag. Yeah, you're never gonna catch me, coppers. You know, I am fucking king shit. Just to turn around and see like Maggie's mom tending to my brother who's like bleeding from his mouth. She's on the phone with my mom instantly. 3 minutes later, my mom's like tanning my ass at home, and I'm fucking grounded for hurting my brother. And I'm like, man, like what the fuck? Like I didn't even mean to. It was a fucking accident, okay? Like shit.